House impeachment managers resume their arguments just a few hours from now. They will focus on the first article today, abuse of power. One of the senators who will be listening carefully, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island. He joins us this morning. Senator, thank you very much for being with us. I want to talk about the substance of the arguments in just a moment. But first, I want to talk about a picture, which you're in first, that comes from late last night. It shows Senator Lindsey Graham shaking the hand of lead House Manager Adam Schiff, and we understand saying, good job, really well spoken. You are standing there to your left. You're the Tom Steyer of this picture here. Can you tell us exactly what transpired in that conversation?
Yeah, sure. Lindsey and I were walking out after the proceedings were over, and by coincidence, we ran into Adam Schiff. All three of us are lawyers and former prosecutors. And we stopped and we congratulated Adam on what was a very well done day by him and his team. You can agree or disagree on what conclusions to draw, but I don't think anybody can argue that Adam Schiff did a very good job as an advocate in a very long day on the Senate floor yesterday. So it was a sort of a nice human moment in which Senator Graham, who are, I think, adversaries on this subject, but friends, both stopped to congratulate a man who'd had a hard day, but a good day.
So Senator Graham, again, I don't think he agrees with Adam Schiff, but he thought that Schiff made a compelling presentation.
A professional compliment, I would call it, by another prosecutor.
One of the things that Adam Schiff is trying to do, not just convince the Senate to convict the president, but there's a separate argument as well, which is to convince enough senators to call witnesses and ask for new evidence. The minority leader, Chuck Schumer, thinks that gains are being made in trying to convince 4 Republicans because that's what it will take. Do you see gains being made here in convincing those 4 Republicans?
Well, the American public clearly understands that a trial is evidence and witnesses, and that a trial without evidence and witnesses is something other than a trial, certainly not a fair trial. And the numbers from public polling seem to show that very strongly. So the Republicans are dealing with that headwind. And I think that's affecting a number of them, particularly those who are going to face the voters in November. And I think there's also kind of a bit of a resurgent caucus in the Republican Party that want to try to get the Bidens in and want to, try to turn this to their advantage and want a witness deal. So I think Mitch is seeing 2 groups. One, a more cautious and responsible group that thinks, wait a minute, this probably should be a fair trial, or at least look a little bit more like it if we're going to face the voters in November. And the second group that is more boisterous and is looking for an opportunity to try to embarrass the Bidens.
If you had to sit here and bet, do you think there'll be witnesses?
Mitch is a master at managing and venting that internal caucus pressure of his. I think he is determined that there will not be witnesses, that this episode needs to be brought to a close. And he has zero interest in it either being or resembling a fair trial.
The president yesterday said something while he was still overseas, which caught a lot of people's attention, and it had to do, we think, with the evidence that is not being presented here. I want you to listen to this.
We're doing very well. I got to watch enough. I thought our team did a very good job. But honestly, we have all the material. They don't have the material.
We have all the material. They don't have all the material. What do you think he meant by that?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory, particularly when the biggest issue and the biggest thing happening in Washington is whether the evidentiary material that the White House is sitting on has blockaded, much of which is actually waiting in boxes to be delivered if the president would only say so, is at issue. So I think he clearly is, in his own peculiar way, crowing about his success at having interfered with and obstructed this investigation.
We had spies, reporters inside the Senate chamber watching very closely yesterday, and there were times when they report that there were many senators, handfuls of senators, not at their desks listening. Now, you did not appear in our report in the Hall of Shame. I did not read your name mentioned as someone who was in the cloakroom, but did you stay at your desk for the whole time?
No, I stood from time to time behind my desk to just stretch. The breaks were sometimes 3 hours apart. And I don't see it as any dereliction of duty to stand instead of sit in the chamber, as long as you're standing quietly at the back and not interfering with anybody's view or anybody's ability to hear or take in what's going on. And people do go in and out to the cloakroom, through the cloakroom from time to time for a variety of reasons. Sometimes nature even calls senators.
Right. But at one point, we had counted 25 senators not at their desks, some in the cloakroom. You're supposed to be in the chamber listening. And at one point,
I
Rand
suspect
Paul.
the majority were standing in the backs of the chamber just for reasons of physical comfort. Just to stretch a bit. You can still hear very well.
You got to stretch your legs.
You're not missing a thing if you're standing instead of sitting.
Doesn't explain crossword puzzles, though, which we understand Senator Rand Paul was working on. Should the Kentucky senator have been working on a crossword?
I'll leave that between him and the Kentucky constituents.
Senator Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island, we appreciate you being with us this morning. Good luck staying as close to your desk as you can manage today.
Thanks.